Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. In just a moment, we're going to begin our services for Pauline. I'd just like to ask before we get started, if anybody has a cell phone with them, could you please turn it off or silence it for the services? We are gathered here today to celebrate the life and honor the memory of Pauline. While Pauline's passing has brought sadness, we take time to reflect on her life and to celebrate her uniqueness and the many great memories that she has brought to all of us who have known her. I know that many of you here have wonderful memories of Pauline, and today we recall those memories and honor and celebrate her life. As we enter into this time of remembrance, I ask you to think of your special memories of Pauline and know that you'll have a time to share those memories with the friends and family that are gathered with us today. Today we're going to begin the service with Pauline's husband, Dave, to say some special words about Pauline.
Thank you, Doug. Well, first of all, I want to thank you all for coming. This is a wonderful turnout, and I'm very grateful to you all. I've had a lot of cards, a lot of email, and a lot of help from a number of people as well, so I really am grateful to you all. Thank you very much. I also thank Doug and the funeral home for hosting this event. And finally, I thank my sister and brother-in-law for coming, and mainly for feeding me last night. I had an excellent dinner. So, as I wrote to my nieces this morning, I said, I'm having real trouble keeping up with your parents. Okay, on to Pauline. She was born on October 1st, 1950. I didn't think I'd do that yet. Anyway, okay. To John and Joyce Sullier, she had a brother, Jim, who unfortunately died a few years before her. She always got on well with Jim, even though Jim used to tease her and play tricks on her. And he started at a very early age, when she was still like around 5, 6, 7. He put an apple on her head and practiced his William Tell. Unfortunately, he missed the apple, and unfortunately, it didn't really harm her, but her chin was never quite the same. She also had, Jim was 4 years older, and her sister, Joyce, was 8 years older. Now, for all those of you that have sat with Pauline for any length of time, know that she would have told you what a terrible person Joyce was and how they didn't get on. But if you had been with them, you would never have suspected that they didn't get on. Pauline always said, well, you know, she talks too much. Except that when there was a conversation going on between the two, you couldn't tell who was talking too much. They were both the same. So really they did get on very well. She was born in the Sioux, if I said that, but when she was only 4, they moved to Hepworth. Her father wanted to go to a warmer climate. Now, Hepworth is a village of only 400 people. It's 120 miles north of Toronto. So as you can imagine, it's not really balmy. So why they moved there, I don't know. But the truth is that the only person who left there was Pauline. The others members of her family all stayed there. So I guess that move wasn't such a bad one. Pauline moved away when she was only 16. That's where she really started to show her strong will and determination which a lot of people have mentioned in the notes that they sent me. She moved to Toronto totally on her own. She had a job, or 4 job offers within the first week of being there. Unfortunately, as she left one of the interviews, she suddenly realized she had no money, no cash whatsoever. She's in the middle of Yonge Street, which is one of the major streets in Toronto, with no way to get back to where she was living. So she started to cry, and that caused a guy to come up and give her $20, but he didn't ask for anything, and he wouldn't give her his address so that she could send it back or anything. So she was able to get home, and then for the next many years she made a career for herself and was really happy in Toronto. She really loved it there. So this brought her to 1976, when she was working for a company called Guaranteed Trust, and she was working for a lady called Rosemary Woodhouse. Rosemary Woodhouse is in this picture here, which is on there sometime. Rosemary, but Pauline was coming out of a bad relationship, and she said to Rosemary, will you find me a man? Rosemary, it wasn't a good choice. Rosemary was not a good choice to find a man. She didn't like most of the men she knew, from as far as I could tell. But she knew me because I worked with her husband, and she decided that I was probably the least of a bad bunch. So she called me up, and I remember this call very, very vividly. And I do remember that I wasn't really enthused about going for a blind date at the time. And I think what I did then was prove to Rosemary how I wasn't really that great a choice. Because I said to her, oh, well, what's wrong with her then? Nevertheless, we did go on a date. I found myself waiting for Pauline in a car park in my silver Mustang, of which I was very proud. And Pauline came across the car park. She'd been under strict instructions not to call it grey. It was silver. And she's always never forgiven me, because apparently as she approached the car, I gave her a good looking up and down. I was under equally firm instructions to take her to a very good restaurant. So I did. I took her to a very expensive restaurant in a ritzy part of Toronto called Yorkville. And we spent the evening trying to impress each other. And the truth of the matter is we both failed miserably. We did not like each other as we left that restaurant. And to be honest, I don't remember the second date, or I don't even remember how we even got to the second date, given the start we had. But we did, and then it was only within a few weeks that we were going pretty steady, and we rarely ever went to a social event without each other. So this brings us to now 1979, and I'm being moved. Well, I've been offered a job in a town called Sarnia. Sarnia is 180 miles southwest of Toronto. It's nearer to Detroit than Toronto, and it's across the river from a town called Port Huron, which is in Michigan. Neither of us, to be fair, were really enthused about moving to a smaller town, but Pauline agreed, and on one Saturday we went down to look at it. And that evening we thought, okay, it's not too bad. We were sitting in the Drawbridge Inn, in the bar at the Drawbridge Inn, and it suddenly occurred to me that, well, perhaps I should ask. So I said, well, I guess we should get married. So Pauline At least it gave her the pleasure of being able to complain about that for the rest of our lives. But I also have to say, I guess because it wasn't really a question, I never really heard her say yes. But somehow or other, on September the 1st, we got married. We were married by a vicar who thought of himself as being a marriage counsellor. And I think he started off as a marriage counsellor, and people were so impressed with him that they said he should be a vicar, and he became a vicar. Anyway, because he was a counsellor a few weeks before our wedding, we asked him, well, what's our chances? And we were expecting, you're good, stable people, you will have excellent chances. And he said, well, you're too old. So, I was a bit worried he was going to refuse to marry us, but he said, but maybe it'll work out, so we'll marry you. So we did get married, and we did live in Sarnia for 10 years, one of the longer places we lived. And Pauline got a job there, and she was working with a very good group of people, so she actually ended up quite enjoying Sarnia. But she then decided that she needed to do a psychology degree, and she was able to do that through the University of Waterloo, which is a big university near Toronto, and they have a correspondence program. She did it at nights and weekends for a while, and then decided it was all going to take too long. So she finished work and studied full-time and graduated in 1986 with a psychology degree. As far as I remember, and I'm pretty sure actually, she was what you call a straight A student, I think, except for one course. That one course was computer programming. And I helped her with that computer programming course. And it was a bit tricky, I admit, but she really never did catch on to it. She just passed that course. But I think that was the start of Pauline's hatred, there's no better word for it, for computers. So that was the beginning of that, I believe. After 10 years in Sarnia, my company, for some strange reason, decided that they should have a head office in Toronto. So they moved a bunch of senior executives and the support staff, I was the support staff, to Toronto. Just about everybody that was being moved to Toronto didn't want to go. It was an expensive city compared to a reasonably priced smaller town. But Pauline was just flying high. She couldn't wait to get back. She just loved Toronto. And sure enough, we got back, she had a job, everything was going splendidly for about 4 years, perhaps a little less, because the company then decided that we were going to be sold, and we were sold to a company called Bayer AG out of Germany. My boss quit, and we got a new boss called Dick White out of the Bayer head office in the US, out of Pittsburgh. He couldn't make up his mind where he was going to have us move to. So he had us move back to Sarnia. We were there a year. I said, I think you should have moved me to Akron. He said, no, you're going to Sarnia. So we went to Sarnia. A year later, he said, yeah, perhaps you're right, I'll send you to Akron. So we went to Akron. At that time, I said, I really should be in Pittsburgh. And he said, no, Akron. So we went, another year later, we're being moved to Pittsburgh. When we were moved to Sarnia, I said to Pauline, I know you don't want to go back to Sarnia. Why don't you continue working and I'll quit? And you can support us. I thought this was a wonderful idea. She unfortunately did not. She said, no, I'll sacrifice. I'll go back to Sarnia and I'm going to take up golf. So, so that is indeed what she did. And so we then, as I said, we went through these US cities, and Pauline continued her golfing career. When we were moved to Akron, we were moved under what was called the NAFTA deal, North American Free Trade Agreement. And under that deal, only the employee of the company that was transferring you could work. So Pauline could not work. So that was ideal as far as Pauline was concerned, because she needed to golf. So that she had a social security card that had stamped on it, ineligible for employment. She never let that card go. We got our green card. Pauline's still there with her card, ineligible for employment. We even became citizens, and she still had that card that said ineligible for employment. However, when she became eligible for Social Security pension, oh, then that card changed. So she was in good form then. So now where am I? I'm in Pittsburgh. Oh, that's right. Dick White, who had trouble knowing where we were to live, retired. And a new boss came in from Germany. And he decided to move us back to Akron. So we'd spent 1 year in Sarnia, 4 years, then 1 year in Akron, 4 years in Pittsburgh. We went back to Akron, and we were there for another 4 years. So, and at the end of that period, the company decided, the Bayer AG decided to spin us off to a new company, a new subsidiary. And they also decided to move me back to Pittsburgh. And I said to Pauline, what do you want to do? And Pauline said, well, enough is enough, let's go to Arizona. So here we are. On December 2005, we moved into our house in Saddlebrook. It was a good start. I mean, it's been a wonderful few years, but it was a good start too. On that first Christmas Day, I'd already found a British club, and Mike and Eileen Sedgwick invited us to their house for a coffee morning on Christmas Day. So there we were in our brand new golf cart, driving to their home in 80-degree weather, over 80 degrees weather, I think. And we had a wonderful morning, and then Pauline said in the afternoon, oh, let's go swimming. Now, I had never known Pauline say, let's go swimming in her life. So this was quite a shock. So anyway, we went swimming. I was thinking, oh, this is good. Perhaps she'll join the swimming club with me. But no, so we went. We had a great time. And then I found out why. She was then on the phone to all her friends in the Northeast and in Canada, telling them, oh, we've just been out for a coffee morning, and then I went for a swim. This place is wonderful. So, yeah, she did like to rub it in if she could. So that was, we really went then, we had 17 years in Saddlebrook. I've never lived anywhere longer, and nor had she, I don't think. It's always been a wonderful place to live, and basically, obviously, it's got lots of great activities, but really it's the people that make it. And as you can see from here, there's a lot of people, but there are some people not from Saddlebrook, because we got involved in some things outside, and they're wonderful people too. So I've been very fortunate in my life, actually, my whole life, but nowhere more so than here, that I've always had wonderful friends and wonderful support from them all, and as I say, it's no exception here. So I had no regrets about moving here, and I had no regrets. I retired fairly early, and so we had 17 years together, and we really were together. When I was at work, I used to have to travel a lot, and of course you were at work during the day anyway, so we weren't together. But here we were together an awful lot of time, and I'm so grateful for that now. Although I must admit, it now makes it harder to take that I can't do that anymore, but it was great. I've talked to a lot of people that have suffered the same loss as me, and everybody says it's not easy. You do learn just how much you rely on that partner, and what a hole that partner leaves in your life when you go away. It's very difficult. In preparing for this, which I must admit I found it difficult to do, I went through all our photograph albums, and then, of course, when we went into the modern world, the digital photographs, and made this slideshow. It was bittersweet, because sometimes it brought back these happy memories, and other times you felt sad, of course. But the thing that it was strange. You began to almost think she was still there, but you knew she wasn't. And I talked to a friend recently about this. Then you realised, or I realised, just how final this is. She's not coming back. And although I was there when she died, I couldn't really communicate with her. She was beyond that. And so I've thought since, even this finality is so, I guess, a cross to bear. I'm not sure what the right terms are, but anyway, it's difficult. I wondered what I would have wanted to say to her if I'd been able to say something. And the only, really, I wanted some really nice, grandiose words, something that I could really point to as being very erudite, is that the right word? Yeah. Anyway, very, very clever things to say, and I couldn't think of anything. So, but in the end, all I can say to Pauline, or would say, is, Pauline, and thank you for a wonderful life together. I really miss you, and your friends all have enjoyed your life with them, and they all miss you. You've really left a big hole in my life, but basically, the thing that we all want is, or would really wish for, is that you were still here. And I couldn't think of a better epitaph than we wish you were still here. And then I think finally, as she had been in some pain before, I would say I hope she's now comfort, more out of pain, and is enjoying some peace. So, God bless you, Pauline. Thank you. Thank you.
At this time, we're going to have Jim Tabor step up, and he has a poem to read for us.
Just to say that we were the direct neighbors. Can you hear me? Can I get closer? We were the direct neighbors of the Taylors, wonderful friends of ours. And We didn't know them before Saddlebrook. So everything that's going to be in this poem is about that time together. So it says, the poem is Till We Meet Again. I can almost read it without these. The world we live in today is stressful and fast-paced, and technology has provided the fuel for this rat race. Most of us try without success to step off the carousel. But I think Pauline learned early how to do it and how to do it well. While the world was rushing here and there, Pauline was reading a book from her easy chair. Often with as many books as she could carry, probably read the entire Saddlebrook library. Close behind her reading for pleasure was her TV shows. Watch whatever you want, but don't mess with my TiVo. Even her driving was of the more relaxing kind. Anything past fascist, not happening in my time. As the world progressed to doing everything online, Pauline refused to turn on the computer at any time. Since her husband was pretty much a technical whiz, she wanted to just relax and let this burden be his. One of Pauline's pleasures was wine at the wall. It was just about a nightly occurrence, as I recall. It was a time filled with laughter, socializing, and fun, and a fitting close to each day when it was done. The wall was the end table for our glasses of wine. We'd solve the world's problems in almost no time. Even a bad day at the wall would all go away with our glasses of Cab, Merlot, or Chardonnay. Pauline had a soft spot, but it wasn't for Marie nor I. It was another kind of creature that caught her eye. Her love for our little dog Sophie was so much greater that she proudly posted her picture on the refrigerator. Pauline was a homebody, content to do her own thing. Only once in a while would she agree to a vacation fling, but always she'd be happy on returning home and continuing the things she'd like to do on her own. Pauline was not spiritual, at least that she'd confide, but now she's crossed over to the other side. I think God was waiting with open arms and open door. And she's happy to be where she's in pain no more. She will always be in our memory bank. For that we have God's providence to thank. And when we think about her, I know we'll discover how much we will miss her and always love her. Pauline, you've entered the dimension of the great unknown. May you find peace, love, and beauty in your new home. And when you enter our thoughts, every now and then, we'll think about the day coming when we'll meet again.
Thank you, Jim. At this time, we're going to hear some words from Dave's sister, Julian Leonard.
Hello, I'm Gillian, Pauline's sister-in-law. My husband Simon and I are over from Yorkshire, England, to join in this celebration of Pauline's life and to spend time with my brother David. Pauline's own sister Joyce was unable to join us and has asked if I could say the following words on her behalf. Sisters are never far apart. Each keeps the other in her heart. Though we didn't say goodbye, treasured memories in my heart I will always hold on to. To love is to remember. May you rest in peace, dear sister. Love, Joyce. And perhaps now I could add the following on my own behalf. My parents and I first met Pauline in Toronto in 1976, and I can still remember her striking prettiness. She was charming and friendly, and soon had my father wrapped round her little finger. It's no surprise that there were other suitors for her affections, but my brother David was the lucky victor. It's a shame, though, that as a result of their marriage, her surname was downgraded from the exotic Soulier to the rather boring Taylor. Notwithstanding the geographical distance between us, Pauline and I became close and enjoyed a good relationship. She had a wicked sense of humour and loved a joke and a giggle. She formed a real bond with my husband Simon, and they loved to take the mick out at David and me. She was very supportive when my daughters Becky and Abby came along, and was a doting godmum to Abby. Our get-togethers generally comprised lots of wonderful family holidays, including several cruises. Pauline always made us very welcome when we stayed with her and David in the various places in which they lived in North America over the years. She was a stylish homemaker with a flair for home decor, and she was a great cook. She made me my first ever French toast, which was simply delicious and which has never been matched. And she was also the queen of margaritas, which guaranteed her stellar status in our family. I think I can safely say there was never any hope of Pauline and David coming to live in England, much as I would have loved that. Pauline was not a lover of the English climate. There is a picture of her actually at a place in Yorkshire, 5 Miles Locks, looking very miserable. It's one of the pictures. In addition, she was baffled by the English obsession for cricket and couldn't believe that my father would sit for hours transfixed by 2 men running up and down a patch of grass. We are very lucky to have had Pauline as a much loved and valued part of our family. She enriched our lives. Sorry, and will be very sadly missed. We shall always remember her with great love and affection.
Thank you, Julian. Now we're going to hear from Julian's husband, Simon, who's a few letters from nieces and nephews, I believe.
Yes. Hi, I'm Simon, also known as the brother-in-law or the husband. I'm really here to read out some words from my daughters, our daughters, who would have loved to have been here, but unfortunately work commitments have kept them away. So the words that I'm going to read out, if I can actually switch my iPad on, are theirs. But just to start off, I've got slightly thrown by David's speech because I haven't realised well, I have realised, but the thing that came over was just how much David and Pauline loved each other. They fought like cat and dog most of the time we were with them. But underneath, you knew that hatred was all put on. I was very lucky to have David, and still am very lucky to have David as a brother-in-law, and incredibly lucky to have Pauline as a sister-in-law as well. The other two things that David's speech reminded me of, well, the first one was that it was like being with a geography teacher really with David. As you know, I think he's lived in virtually all of the 50 states of America over the time I've known him. And I was a constant source of irritation too, because I could never remember which bloody town he was in at any given moment. In fact, I thought he lived in Pittsburgh for about 20 years, whereas in fact he was backwards and forwards between Canada and America at that time. The other thing which has been alluded to already was that Pauline, I think, was born in an igloo somewhere just outside the Arctic Circle, and therefore should have been able to put up with extreme cold wherever she went. In fact, she was the coldest person in terms of temperature. She was never warm anywhere. I first met Pauline in 1985, under not the happiest of circumstances. It was after the unexpected and sudden death of David and Julian's mother, Peggy. But we met, and at that time I was very much a newbie in the family. I'd only been going out with Jill for about 3 years. 3 years, 3 years or so, rather. As it happened, I hadn't been around at the time of David and Pauline's wedding. That had happened a few years before. Luckily, however, I was around at the time that Jill finally decided to buy them a wedding present, some 3 years later. And of course, I was expected to contribute to the wedding present, even though I didn't go to the wedding, which was a constant source of Pauline throughout our time. And we got to know each other that first trip, mainly in the kitchen, doing what we could to help out in what was really quite a rough time for the whole family. Pauline insisted on doing all the washing up, which I thought was very good of her. And it was really some time later that I realised that submerging her hands in hot water was the only way she had of competing with the vagaries of the English climate. She made an immediate impression on me, and you'll have seen from the photographs, she was a beautiful woman. She was attractive, exotic, she was French Canadian, she was sassy and witty. We could have been twins. We shared our mutual roles of keeping David and Gillian in check and under our control, so we like to think, and I shall miss my partner in crime on our little road trip that we're going to do, just the three of us this time, next week. I think if Pauline could have made that trip, she would have no doubt bemoaned the icy blasts buffeting the coasts of Southern California, but clad in a thick coat and scarf whilst on the beach, and then curled up with an Afghan in the evening, which I always found a very odd expression, but anyway, it's a blanket as opposed to a dog or anything else. I think she would still enjoy it. It is, in closing, I have to say, it's just so desperately sad that her sudden downturn in health took her so quickly and so soon. But like everyone, I shall miss her, and I hope that she is now at peace. And so too our daughters, Becky and Abby, who obviously have known Pauline for the whole of their lives. Pauline bought Becky her first, well, call in England a dummy, but I think you might probably call it a comforter, when Becky was only 4 months old. Mainly to stop her screaming, which she had been doing pretty much non-stop for a week after we arrived in Toronto. So, the main reason I'm here is to actually read just a few words from our daughters about their Auntie Pauline. We'll remember Pauline as our colourful, mysterious aunt from across the pond, never more so than when we were young, around 5 and 3 years old. During family holidays in Devon, she would let us sit and watch her get ready for evenings out that we were too young and perhaps dorky, or so we felt, to go to. She'd tell us tales of Canada and America, having to ski to school, sounded so much cooler and more exotic than running across the road in rainy West Yorkshire. We'll remember Pauline as a great film advisor, presenting us with the likes of The Bodyguard and Steel Magnolias, all, despite The Bodyguard somehow giving 13-year-old Becky nightmares, all those films became firm favourites and were soon added to the DVD collection when we returned to English soil. We'll remember Pauline as a great holiday companion, from cruises on the Mediterranean, taking us for our first American breakfast with American pancakes in Florida, to country walks in Devon. We always had great fun, drinking, eating, playing games and joking around the world together. We'll remember Pauline for her love of golf. As two young girls growing up in Bradford, West Yorkshire, She was the first person we ever really heard of playing golf in real life, rather than it being something Dad watched on the TV when we wanted to be watching Friends. She even let us have a go on a golf cart when when we came to Arizona, although wisely suggested that our Uncle David take the pedal-happy Abby and the petrified Becky for a spin. She was, and will continue to be, an excellent retort in arguments with men who tell us that golf is a man's game. As we say, it can't be, because it was Pauline's game. We'll remember Pauline for her incredible skills in making margaritas, especially when we were old enough to join in. Abby would also like to point out that the last time she saw Pauline, Abby with her boyfriend Sam, back in May this year, they caught up by drinking wine in the hotel room from plastic cups, celebrating in true Leonard Taylor fashion. But most of all, we'll remember Pauline as a wonderful aunt, quick-witted, entertaining, and always a force to be reckoned with. We'll miss her.
Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. At this time, David wanted to open the mic to any friends that are here with us today that might want to step up and share a story of Pauline. So if you'd like to do that, just come on forward to the microphone. Understand it's not easy to get up in front of the podium and talk in front of a group of people. We are going to be having a reception right after the service in the room to the right through the double doors. Please, if you do have stories or memories of Pauline to share with Dave, you can do it there, or even in the future, do it by email or text or a phone call. It's those stories and memories that helps keep Pauline alive in our hearts, in Dave's heart. I'm sure he'd love to hear those. This is going to conclude our services today. I'd just like to ask that you let Dave and Jillian and Simon step into the reception room, and then you're all more than welcome to follow them there. So thank you all for being here with us today to show your love and support to Dave at this very difficult time in his life. This will conclude our services.
Thank you.
You're more than welcome to join them.
It's okay. It goes well some days, just not so much other days. Yeah, yeah.
Do you plan that off or is that, I think,